breaking up can be hard to do, and it can come with a lot of changes.
Yeah, I go out of my way to go a little bit further to shop at a place where I know that I'm not going to have any run-ins or any memories that are brought up.
So Safeway.
Safeway, no good.
And Crave.
Same thing, yeah. Back to Netflix.
When Megan Mullany split with her boyfriend, she didn't just end things with him. Have you ever broken up with a brand after breaking up with your bae? Welcome to The Cost of Living. I'm Paul Havershrud. And yeah, sometimes love and money just don't mix. Also on the show today, booze. We're drinking less of it. This isn't really a worry unless you're the beverage industry. Up first, fan fiction used to be relegated to Star Trek fanzines. Spock goes to SETI Alpha 5, fights King Arthur. It was amateur writers having fun, and it was kind of dismissed. But now, nobody's putting fanfic in the corner. It's out in the open, making real money for publishers. So what changed? If you love, say, Sherlock Holmes, you know all the lore. He plays the violin, he does cocaine. So what if you read a story where Sherlock didn't live at 221B Baker Street? He was in high school, mortal enemies with John Watson, not even a detective. You know Sir Arthur Conan Doyle didn't write that one, Jenny DeRosio.
No, that's fan fiction. Stories like that and many other weirder ones exist.
I don't know what weird corners of the internet you're trafficking in, but okay.
For those that don't know, fan fiction is when a fan of something writes a story inspired by that thing. It could be a celebrity, a TV show, or a book.
Harry Potter grows up, becomes an accountant in Halifax.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's a little boring, but throw in a romance with his classmate Ron, and bam, you might get some readers following along.
Spicy.
Romance sells. And a lot of fanfic has that. And these stories are getting a lot of eyes on them, like several billion page views a month. And the bigger the fan base or celebrity, the more readers.
I knew that using Harry Styles' name and basing a character off of him would gain a lot of traction.
Aruna Dutta is a student at the University of Toronto. She writes Harry Styles fanfiction. Lots of people do this, and she's written 2 so far.
The bigger one I had was they were like 2 rival spy groups that had to join together because like someone else was like chasing them kind of, and they were forced to be together, like close proximity relationships. And yeah. And then the other one, they were in college actually, and it was more of a Bonnie and Clyde situation.
Who reads these?
All kinds of fans. These stories are online, they're free, so it could be anyone. Now, they're not all winners, but some do take off, like the After series. It's inspired by the boy band One Direction.
So more Harry Styles just before he went solo.
Exactly. Anna Todd posted the series online, and it went nuts. Simon & Schuster saw it. Then came 5 book deals and 5 movies.
And this all started with Harry Styles fanfic.
Yes, it started as a fringe thing. You know, this used to be dismissed, like people thought it was kind of amateur, but not anymore. Big publishers in Hollywood, they see money in fan fiction. The way you work it. You could call it the 50 Shades of Grey effect.
We are a family-friendly show, Jenny.
Say what you want about that book series, Paul, but it sold more than 165 million copies worldwide. And it started as a fanfic.
I remember hearing something about that, I think, at the time.
Yeah, the author, E.L. James, wrote the series online under the title Master of the Universe. And the main characters, Bella and Edward.
Like, from Twilight.
I mean, not really. She took it in a whole new direction. No vampires. But there was still this intense romance between 2 people who are different ages and are obsessed with each other. A billionaire and a university student. Same, but different.
That's why, like, 50 Shades of Grey is set in the Pacific Northwest where the author had never been.
Ann Jamieson teaches a course on fanfic. She's an English professor at the University of Utah.
And once you change the names, if you didn't already know, it wouldn't necessarily be recognizable.
So after all those tweaks, this story was made into books and movies, and that was a big leap for fanfiction.
And it helped push it more towards the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting there. There have been many deals brokered in the last decade.
Traditional publishing is looking at fanfic sites more than they ever have before.
Duncan Stewart is with Deloitte Canada. He follows the publishing industry.
They go and they talk to authors and they say, hey, this is really good. Would you be interested in it? If you ever decide to publish this as a non-fanfic, we would be happy to work with you and we would be happy to publish it. My understanding is the majors are absolutely looking at that.
So Big Five publishers are offering deals to fanfic writers. This is a long way from the days of fanzines being handed out at Star Trek conventions.
It really is. I mean, look at something like The Love Hypothesis. It's a New York Times bestseller. It started online.
I don't know this book.
It's huge. It's set at Stanford, you know, the old student and professor dalliance. But this started as a Star Wars story. The author, Ali Hazelwood, changed it to make it less sort of galactic. Rey and Kylo Ren fall in love while working in a lab.
And they had chemistry, not to mention the Force.
But yeah, right. I mean, we talked about this. Readers love romance, and that's not all publishers like about it.
On most of these sites, you can see reviews and comments. You can see number of positive stars, positive reviews, people referring to it. It is a way of helping a publisher identify potential talents in a fairly structured way.
So publishers are scouting for new writers on fanfic sites.
Yeah, Duncan says they have really good ideas that connect with readers.
Okay, yeah, they're connecting, but they're also connecting with stories that aren't really their own. Like they might be an homage or inspired by, but the original source material, it is not theirs. So are there any legal issues around this or anything to do with copyright that's a problem?
I mean, in Canada, no one has taken fanfiction to court. The Copyright Act allows creators to use original material as inspiration, to a point.
Huh.
And something else, I talked to a lawyer who told me that fanfiction can actually help the original works that inspired them, sort of like creates more awareness, more hype.
And with that awareness, again, it's pushing fanfiction more towards the mainstream.
It is. And if you look at one of the biggest stories out there right now, it's called Manacled. Penguin Random House is publishing that next year. It's based off Hermione Granger and Draco Malfoy.
From Harry Potter.
Yes, but in this story, there is no Harry because he's dead.
Ooh, tough one for Harry. But does anyone mind that these beloved stories are being taken and changed and morphed and brought into these different directions?
Fanfic audiences are kind of used to this. A lot of people like the idea of taking characters and asking, what if? But not everyone loves the idea of fanfiction going commercial. You know, this has always been a passionate online community that was free. Like when Master of the Universe became 50 Shades of Grey.
That caused a lot of upset, to put it mildly, within those fandoms because people felt exploited or they felt like it was going to ruin something that was, you know, a beautiful gift economy.
Ann Jamieson, the English prof from Utah, she says some fans feel like publishers and movie execs stepping in goes against the spirit of what fanfic is.
Like they're selling out to big book.
Pretty much. But not everyone cares about this. Like our Harry Styles fan, Aruna. She says, bring it on.
Honestly, I'm enjoying it. I'm eating it up. It's the cheesy romance that I really do adore. And I feel like the fanfics are like fueling, like the movies based off the fanfictions are fueling that for me. It's like, you could just sit down and watch it. Like it takes no brain effort to understand.
So she's into it. And hey, if Harry and Ron live happily ever after,
then she's happy.
All right. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Paul.
So here's something that's definitely not fan fiction. We have a question and answer show coming up, and we need your questions. For real. In the past, you've asked everything from, is the federal debt a worry? To, what's the quickest way to get your fast food? Drive-through or order inside? So if you have a question about business or economics, give us a call. We'll try to find you an answer. Our number is 1-866-550-COST. That's 1-866-550-2678. Or email costofliving@cbc.ca. You are listening to The Cost of Living. I'm Paul Haberstrood. It's not you, it's me. A classic breakup line that, even if it's mostly not true, is nicer than saying, like, roses are red, violets are blue, trash is dumped, and so are you. Not everyone gets let down gently. Not even businesses. Because, as producer Ellis Cho finds, some of the collateral damage from a bad breakup can include where you spend your money.
Megan Mullany and her boyfriend used to do everything together. Work out, watch The Sopranos. They even bought toilet paper together.
The first Tuesday of every month is 15% off Tuesday at Safeway, so we'd always do our big monthly grocery shops together.
But after they broke up, Megan stopped going to Safeway, quit going to his gym, and canceled her Crave subscription.
Just because we were using Crave to watch The Sopranos together, and it was something we did together, and over time, you just create certain patterns in history and connections to certain brands, and even though the breakup was quite mutual, it was still quite hard. And so with the particular brands that he loved or that reminded me of our time together, it just wasn't worthwhile keeping them around.
That's because breaking up with your boo can lead to a breakup with brands.
These are the things that make people feel like they have moved on, that they have a fresh start now.
Aiken Oak studies consumer behavior at Queen's University. She says people don't just switch brands because they're unhappy with a product or service.
It doesn't always have to be transactional reasons. Switching can also be triggered by these psychological motives, which I think is really interesting.
Aiken is part of a team studying how a romantic split can affect where you spend. So, how many people stop going to their favorite restaurant or grocery store after breaking up? 20%. That's twice as many compared to non-breaker-uppers. And the switch tended to happen with people who are tight with someone who enriched their lives in some way.
If my partner is really into running and because of the relationship, I also adopt this interest, then that's part of, I'm getting a new identity as a, wannabe runner.
So when things fall apart,
we feel like we don't know who we are anymore without our partner or now that we are single. And as we're going through this identity transformation, brand switching plays this symbolic role because we experience this desire to redefine ourselves.
Aiken says that could also mean changing your hair, getting a new wardrobe. A glow up. But sometimes changing your appearance is easier than dumping a brand, especially if it takes work to switch.
If I want to switch from iPhone to Android, I have to feel really, really strong about that because I don't want to learn a new system. So there are some switching costs that prevent people from switching their brands.
But for Megan Mullany, all the hassle that comes with starting fresh was worth it.
I feel like a better version of myself. I feel more free. I feel more like myself.
She literally washed that man right out of her hair. She got a new do, a new job, and a new grocery store.
Yeah, I go out of my way to go a little bit further to shop at a place where I know that I'm not going to have any run-ins or any memories that are brought up.
So Safeway
Safeway, no good.
and Crave.
Same thing, yeah. Back to Netflix.
For the cost of living, I'm Ellis Cho.
On your radio and by podcast, this is The Cost of Living. I'm Paul Havershrud. Booze. Hooch, suds, vino. Drinking can be full of good times and regrets. As Homer Simpson put it,
To alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
now what Homer couldn't have seen coming, we're drinking less. Most Canadians now have 1 or 0 drinks a week. This is according to a recent StatsCan study. So is less boozy just a blip, or is it here to stay? And how worried is big alcohol? Brewers, winemakers, and distillers. Rod Phillips, a history professor at Carleton University, is a wine judge and the author of Alcohol, A History. Hi there.
Hi, Paul. How are things going?
Well, thanks. Thanks for being here.
Good.
So, Rod, how different is our relationship with drinking now than, say, 20 years ago or even 10 years ago?
Oh, well, I think alcohol has become much more associated with lifestyle. For the last 10 years or more, there's been all this concern about binge drinking. And binge drinking is, often associated with younger people, sitting down and having, say, 5 or 6 drinks in one session. My experience is that the people of my age are more likely to be binge drinkers than my students at Carleton.
Does that surprise you?
It does, in a way. I mean, I grew up, I'm a boomer, and I grew up, thinking that, when you're a student, this was the time to sort of let loose and do everything to an extreme, whether it was, whatever it was. But it certainly included alcohol. And, I see my students not being like that at all.
Well, I feel like there's a whole chapter to be written in the gap between whatever it was, Rod. But we'll leave that. So if you think about younger people, younger Canadians drinking less, like what's changed? Why are they/we pulling back?
Well, it's not just Canadians, and this is really it's very common in Europe now, in the UK, in the United States, in Australia, that younger people are just drinking less alcohol. And there have been lots of studies and surveys and that kind of thing. And part of it comes down to simply the cost. Drinks in restaurants are much more expensive than they were. It's hard to get a glass of good wine for under $15, and people are often feeling the pinch these days. And alcohol is one of the things that you can cut back on. The younger people are more concerned about health than older people were when they were younger. And that's often given as a reason for cutting back on alcohol or abstaining from alcohol entirely. And then there's also, the rise of cannabis. Well, cannabis has been around for a long time, but it's much more readily available now. It's legal in many places. And, I think people are choosing to use cannabis rather than alcohol. There's no hangover the next day. So, there's a variety of reasons, I think, why younger people in particular are cutting back on drinking.
What about lifestyle? As you say, when you were in your 20s, it was it sounds like it was a way of life. You went out there, binge drinking was more prominent. Has there been a more of a shift?
Yeah, I think there has been a shift. It's associated with many things. The campaign for, against drinking and driving has been much more successful among younger people. They want to be, I've seen studies that show that they're concerned about their careers. They recognize if you go out and drink heavily, in the evening, then the next day you're not going to be particularly productive at work. It's nice while you're drinking it, but there are consequences. And, thinking ahead, it might be better just not to do that, not to have that boozy evening.
Well, what about the alcohol business, like booze producers? Whether you're a winemaker or you're distilling spirits or you're a brewer, do you have a sense of how the industry is feeling about this shift?
Well, I'm mostly exposed to the wine industry because wine is what I do most of, and the alarm bells are ringing. I mean, in Bordeaux, for example, with a classic and important wine region. I mean, they're just pulling out tens of thousands of hectares of vines because they're stuck with unsold wine. Now, it could be that that particular style of wine has gone out of fashion. But everywhere you can see alarm about the decline in drinking, and people are very upset about things like dry January, when people abstain from alcohol for the month of January. And so some of them have put together a new campaign. It's called Come Over October, which means come over and have a drink. And it's an opportunity for people to share a glass of wine with colleagues, with neighbors, with friends, and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of fear mongering. I think a lot of pearl clutching going on in the wine industry. People are talking about neo-prohibition. Neo-prohibitionism. They're attacking the World Health Organization. They're attacking Health Canada, simply because these organizations have been saying no alcohol is good for you. Best to not to drink at all. And if you do have to drink maybe two servings of alcohol a week, not a day. And so there's a huge reaction against these new public health policies and against the organizations. But it's all couched in terms of well, they're destroying our industry, and the alcohol, they say, is a good thing. It brings people together. People enjoy it. It's relaxing. So there is a big reaction on the part of the alcohol industry, and it's going to be interesting to see how that works out.
Well, do you think that the alcohol industry, in calling it neo-prohibition, have a case to be made against someone like Health Canada giving these kinds of guidelines?
Well, I think prohibition is the wrong word for start. A neo-prohibition, but prohibition is as we know it, that was in place in Russia and then in the United States in the 1920s. I mean, that's a coercive policy that just says it's illegal to make alcohol or sell alcohol. It wasn't illegal to drink alcohol, but that's coercive. What the World Health Organization and Health Canada and other public health authorities are saying is, here are the risks, and we advise you, if you can, not to drink alcohol, and if you do drink alcohol, to drink less alcohol. That's basically what they're saying. So it's not prohibition. It's health advice. And I think these health organizations are absolutely right in doing that. And it's sort of scaremongering to call that prohibition, because no one is threatening to take away alcohol.
But a lot of younger people, as we've been talking about, are either listening to that health advice. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons which we've discussed why they're pulling back from drinking. But when the industry looks at this shift, are they doing anything about it? Are they trying to react to this shift?
Well, one thing they're doing is making non-alcoholic beverages. So a lot of wineries are now producing zero alcohol. It's in a wine bottle. It's got a screw cap or a cork, but it has zero alcohol. And this is now very big business on the part of wineries and also breweries turning out zero alcohol beverages, because you can still sell these de-alcoholized drinks for prices that are very similar to the alcoholic beverages. I just was looking at a German de-alcoholized wine the other day, and it sells in the LCBO for $18 a bottle, and the regular wine, the equivalent wine, sells for about $20. So they're not losing much if they can get non-drinkers to drink that stuff, and drinkers to drink the regular alcoholic beverages. Then they'll be fine.
Finally, Rod, you're a historian. History is full of ebbs and flows, obviously. The history of drinking is full of ebbs and flows. Do you see the pendulum here swinging back and forth, maybe swinging one way or the other? Or perhaps do you just see it kind of swinging in one direction for a while?
I always love it when people ask a historian about the future. But I can foresee a time when alcohol just is no longer part of our cultural landscape, because things have happened in the past. We've been heavy users of all kinds of commodities, and those have disappeared. So yeah, I think it's entirely possible. But if it's driven by price, then if we enter a more prosperous period and price is no longer a problem, then people might start buying more alcohol. If it's a question of health, then presumably the health alcohol is not all of a sudden going to become a healthy thing. So that suggests that the trend would be entrenched and would continue. And if more and more younger people come on stream, and older people like me die off and cease to be high consumers of alcohol, then the overall we would expect alcohol consumption to go down.
Well, that was a pretty good crystal ball, I think, even for a historian, Rod.
Do my best.
Thanks for all that.
Okay.
Rod Phillips is a history professor at Carleton University and the author of Alcohol, A History. What about you? Are you drinking any less these days? And is cost part of the reason, or is it something else? Give us a call and let us know. Our number is 1-866-550-COST. That's 1-866-550-2678. Or email costofliving@cbc.ca. That's all for this week. The Cost of Living is based in Calgary. This show is produced by Daniel Nerman, Ellis Cho, and Jennifer Keene, with help from Caroline the Little Alligator Ferris and Jeff Kynock. I'm Paul Habersrud. Thanks for listening.